All right, Robert, thank you. Housing stocks surging yesterday after the National Association of Realtors said sales of existing homes rose in February. Let's see now. Some see it as a sign that the housing sector may not be worsening any further. Others say it's due to aggressive price cutting by homeowners. But the U.S. is not the only country watching the housing market. Home building is hot overseas, including red hot in Mexico and in fast-growing South Korea. Gale International and Homex are the companies that play in these two countries. And today we welcome Homex CEO Gerardo de Nicolas, who will be ringing in the New York Stock Exchange opening bell as part of Mexico Day, and Gale International Chairman Stanley Gale. And welcome to both of you. Gerardo, let me start with you. How hot is the housing market in Mexico? Our market here is struggling, but how much demand are you seeing down there in Mexico?
Oh, good morning, Peter. The Mexican population is close to 100 million people, and the annual demand is close to 750,000 homes. In 07 was the first year that we built in Mexico 750,000 homes. It's the first year that the deficit is not growing anymore.
Are you affected at all by things like, high interest rates or foreclosures or anything like that, or is it because Mexico is a developing market?
The foreclosure is very, very low in Mexico. We have a national housing fund called Infonavit that provides home on mortgages to close to 500,000 people per year. It's deducted by their salaries, by the workers' salaries, and this fund is very, very efficient. We are facing a record levels of supply of homes in Mexico, and the market is growing. We have an underserved demand of close to 4 million homes in Mexico at this time.
Stan, what about you? You're building in South Korea, of all places, a big American company over there. What's going on with you in South Korea?
Well, it's very interesting. About 7 years ago, we were invited to join with the Korean central government, Incheon City, and POSCO Steel to create a brand new city, a hub city, hub of Northeast Asia, in Incheon, original landing place of General MacArthur,
that's right,
as you'll recall. And the city will be the size of downtown Boston.
And it's $30 billion, this project?
$30 billion.
God.
It's 100 million square feet, approximately 50 million square feet of residential, and 50 million square feet of commercial, office, retail, convention center.
Well, put your perspective on this, because I don't know how much home building you do in the States, but if you do, what's happening here in the States? Are you typical of other builders? And what is going on internationally? Is it just undeveloped markets, the low dollar, what?
Well, I think first in the United States we're going through a normal correction cycle. We are very active as well in Boston, and we are in the process of titling a 6.5 million square foot mixed use, a mini Songdo, if you will, in Seaport, as well as building the 35-story Filene's building. But the normal cycle is underway in the United States, whereas in Asia, Northeast Asia particularly, we are really the Songdo is the epicenter of that Northeast Asia market. 1/3 of the world's population, that growing population, is within a 3-hour plane ride. And as a matter of fact, Shanghai, Beijing are all within an hour-and-a-half plane ride. So this is the emerging market and continuing to grow market.
Gerardo, let me ask you about other markets in Central and South America. I don't know if you're doing any business down there, but for example, there's a big company in Brazil, Gavisa. How has the U.S. market trouble spurred investors to look outside of the United States to home builders like you in Mexico and in South America?
What we have seen is that other developing markets are a good opportunity because the maturity level of the industry. We are facing in Mexico historic lows in terms of mortgage rates, and we are at a very different maturity level at this time. We are with a lot of opportunities. We are growing in the 20% range each year, and the opportunities is at this time in home building in my perspective, it's outside the United States, on the developing countries, like Mexico, Brazil, or other developing countries in Asia, too.
Stan, how about the financing for these kind of projects? As you know, the credit markets here have been tight. The Fed, of course, has run to the rescue. I don't know, how do you get your financing, and is it affected by all the issues here in the States?
We were very fortunate that we moved decisively this fall to put in place a $2.7 billion financing vehicle, which is a long-term instrument. And we fund with a combination of debt and equity. But yes, I think over time this will have a great impact throughout Asia. Fortunately, we put our financing long-term in place this fall.
But any problems with new financing? Is it or
right now, because of the demand factor, particularly in the residential and soon-to-be commercial market burgeoning, there is very little land, very little development, and so the demand factor outpaces the supply in Korea and Northeast Asia in general. So as such, we find many capital sources very interested in our project.
Gerardo, tell us about your stock. You're buying back, I think, $250 million worth of stock. The stock, I looked at your chart, pretty good looking chart there. What's the future like, and can you give us any guidance?
Yes, we are offering a growth in revenues for this year of 18% in real terms, an improvement on the EBITDA margin to 50 basis points to be at around 25% EBITDA margin. And this is an opportunity for us in terms of growth. The company has been the fastest growing home builder in Mexico. At this time, we are the largest. We have more than 8% of the total market share, and we believe that we have room to grow in the future.
I don't know if Stan's going to come down to Mexico, but I do want to ask you, South Korea is just a hop skip, frankly, from China. What about China as a market for companies like yours and for American builders? That's a huge developing market.
No question about it. And as a matter of fact, there are 50 cities within an hour-and-a-half plane ride of our city, of over 1 million population, if you can imagine. 1/3 of the world's population within a 3-hour plane ride. And this is the emerging market that you read about in Northeast Asia. What we're creating is a platform, commercial, residential, full solution, schools, hospitals, homes, parks, in a very warm and friendly environment, a hop, skip, and a jump to all of these markets in China. So companies can base in Korea, a great U.S. ally, and operate in China, home the same night.
But can you build in China long term?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. We can build and operate in China. As a matter of fact, we've been invited to do Songdo 2, if you will. But we're really opening up our first phase in August of next year. You're all invited to see, and we're going to finish that before we jump in and build in China.
All right, Stan Gale, Gale International, and Gerardo de Nicolas, the CEO of Homex. Thanks for joining us this morning. Amazing. We're so in the mud here in the States in our housing market, we don't think about overseas.